for the olive boys down in the house of corrections, as they try for love and any form of ascension. Am I on the right train, headed in the wrong direction? What say you, Lord? What say you, Lord?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my penultimate review of Breaking Bad's 5th and final season. So I need to warn you guys that, for one thing, I'm shaking like a schizo right now. I went to the Rose City Comic-Con earlier today, which was both the best and the worst decision of my life. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my second to last Breaking Bad review. We are going to break down together the Granite State. So, spoiler alerts as we go forward, and just as a brief public service announcement, number one, I'm shaking like a schizo right now because I had a ridiculously sized cup of Java earlier today, on top of going to the Rose City Comic-Con as the Phoenix, you can see here. Hopefully somebody who watches this will appreciate that. And it was a gay old time. And then I had to come home and realize, okay, the Dexter series finale is tonight, but I'm also watching and reviewing Breaking Bad. So what I did was I took stream of consciousness notes during the entire 75-minute episode of Breaking Bad tonight because I am in a state of utter emotional compromise, and so I wanted to make sure that I could get my thoughts out clearly and concisely to you guys. Those of you who have seen my past reviews, you know that they aren't so brisk, and I apologize for that. So I'm gonna get into it and walk you through the entire episode, and my thoughts will be sprinkled throughout, but I'm going to be doing a lot of reading during this review because I wrote everything out. Give myself some notes. So let's dive into this before I drive you any crazier, okay? So here we go. Stream of consciousness. I'll be speaking about the episode in present tense-ish at times because of how I typed, but I think you guys can jive with it. So let's rock and roll. All right, so we start out, and the name of Saul Goodman's game changes drastically as the poster-friendly lawyer is forced to go underground in the midst of the Heisenberg heat wave. And he, of course, comes to discover that he's got a rather unsavory roommate as he prepares to ship off for Nebraska. For those of you Dexter fans, I hope that that reminded you of a certain little something. And, of course, this roommate is probably not going to be content to give him his own space. So, we can assume that. And then we see that Marie is on her way home after her horrifying discovery, only to come upon a whole new discovery as her house has been utterly broken into by the neo-Nazi crew. And as it turns out, Jesse really did dish on everything. And to say that he's walking a trapeze wire as limp as a cooked spaghetti noodle is kind of the understatement of the year. And the guys are ready to take Jesse out once and for all, but Todd argues on Jesse's behalf, trying to buy him some time, noting that there's a lot of meth that kind of needs to get out there and into the world. And the guys, of course, figure out that Todd is crushing on a certain Miss Lydia, hence, you know, his reason for keeping Jesse alive. And in the meantime, Jesse gets creative with a paperclip, and those of you who saw the episode will understand what I mean by that. And then we cut to see that Walter is trying to wrangle Saul into helping him get back at the neo-Nazi Brotherhood, who of course took his entire livelihood and killed his family, and that is crossing a certain line that is uncrossable in the book of Walter. And Saul, however, insists that it's over and it's time to face the music. And of course, this, you know, this assertion of his is accentuated by Walter breaking down into a coughing fit, and Saul exits stage right as briskly as possible with his clearly empty suitcases, because I don't know who picks up 3 suitcases that fast. I mean, unless you're trying to flee the state. I guess that makes sense, you know, adrenaline will do that for you. At any rate, the question is, will Walter put on his dancing shoes, or is he going to pull the plug on the gig? That is the big question. And then we see that Skylar is preparing to go to court, and instead of taking her shut up, shut up, shut up approach, by the way, congratulations to Anna Gunn for winning the Outstanding Actress Award. It was pretty well deserved, you know. She knows how to make people shut up. So she says, you know, I understand, I'm in terrible trouble. And, you know, and she tells them, I can't give you what you want. And of course, this is a really multivalent statement, being that not only does she not know where Walter is, but furthermore, I think that there's still a part of her that is attached to him, especially because of the freedom that Walter tried to give her through the phone call from the last episode. And I think she sees that and she feels that on some level, and knowing, you know, how involved she really was, there's this part of her that feels the need to own that, you know, despite how things kind of transpired last time. So then let's see, where are we here? And then we see Todd and company break into the White residence in supreme stealth mode and try to make sure that everybody's on the same page, you know, regardless of how dirty and not fun-filled that page may happen to be. And the dudes then ninja their way on out despite the police detail. And we're in a state of compromise, sweet compromise, as Skylar is backed into a corner yet freaking again. And then we see that Todd's getting ready to meet his lover in the cafe, who makes like she did the last time that she saw Mike, or well, I don't know if it was the last time, but you know, you remember that scene. And you know, tough goings in the land of love for Blondie boy. It's kind of hard to, you know, make the moves when you're back to back. And Todd tells Lydia about the Skylar confrontation, and you know, granted, Lydia is pretty concerned about that situation, being that Skylar encountered her at the car wash in a rather non-passive aggressive form. So, you know, it's all in favor of tying up loose ends. But then he says, you know, he doesn't think it's an issue, and that, oh, by the by, honey, 92% purity in the last batch. Now you're speaking her love language, okay? You know, so that's Heisenberg level, clearly. You know, he says he's got the next best thing, Pinkman, and that's basically how he's making this relationship work. It's by keeping the guy alive. You know, it's that necessary third wheel in things, I think, you know. Jesse doesn't realize just how much he's helping his buddy out. You know, and Todd's awkwardly, you know, insisting that things are mutually good. And, you know, I think this warrants a gentle back touch to the lady behind him. Then we see Walter White, in the meantime, is trying his hand at the ninja business himself, and he emerges from a rather unhomely propane tank to find himself in the land of New Hampshire. And from the deserts of dirt to a winter wasteland. Either way, he's not exactly rolling in the green right now. You know, I mean, at least he's not waltzing barefoot on the beaches of Belize. I mean, assuming that there are beaches. That's my guess. Okay, let's see my notes. Oh yes, and then Walter gets oriented on his new quarters. Time for that fancy living. And Walter is relatively unimpressed with the film collection. And, you know, he's talking with his connection. He says, normally you and I would have gone our separate ways, but you're you. And Walter rather dislikes the change of pace in his rather riotous social life. I mean, what's a lonely kingpin to do? You gotta have your friends. Walter then puts on his cozy coat and increases its insulation with the help of some currency, but wait, something's amiss. The Heisenberg hat seems to have made his way to New Hampshire as well. And he's got that swagger now, on a mission to get even with the world, and he weighs his options in no man's land. And tomorrow, he says, as he trudges up to the gate and then goes back down with the spirit of a true procrastinator. Meantime, Jesse, the caged beast, struggles for daylight, or, you know, rather nightlight, as Todd lowers him down a little ice cream treat for his grade A batch. And before Todd tucks him in, you know, Jesse requests that he has the top off in order to see the stars. And he does, in fact, get a few yards closer there, too. As he wrangles his way on out of there, the music is pulsing, and my heart is just careening within me because, you know, there's no way. There is absolutely no way that he's, you know, he's in a cage within a cage. And surely enough, our boy is as home free as we expected, and he's ready to just go down. He wants to face the music himself. However, we see very clearly that psychopath Todd is not exactly gonna let things go that way. I was telling myself that I think that Todd was a nickname of Satan back in high school. So of course he goes up to the house and he is just as sweet as bread and butter until that last fatal moment and just the innocence that he has crossed. I have so much more disdain for Todd than I even do for Walter White right now. I mean, with all the atrocities that he's committed, I mean, Walter still has some sense of consequence. Like, even when he took out Mike, the way that he freaks out and he's all a jitter and trying to figure out like how to actually let him die and just all that crap shows that there's still some semblance of a soul inside. But I don't know what Todd's freaking deal is. If he just, you know, put a tube down and slurped it up and out of a vacuum, I mean, clearly this guy don't give a single flip. And I'm pretty much ready for a psychopath blondie boy to kick the bucket in epic fashion. So Walter White, if you do anything with your life, get on that, okay? And then we see that Walter is getting ready to shimming his way off the reservation. Well, not quite. And, you know, we see he's converted the Heisenberg hat to a beanie. He's talking with his connection in the cabin and taking the beanie off. We see he's got a full head of hair, and just the way that he looks, I mean, give the makeup department some credit because they really did a fine job of just displaying the fatigue and this distraughtness and just the way that the cancer is weighing on him. It's just so physical. And, you know, so we learn that Walter's house is on the market and becomes a canvas of creative expression for anyone who so desires to sign the yearbook of Heisenberg, okay? And we see him getting a little bit of chemo out in the rough. Not the kind of thing that you want to try at home, but Walter White is not exactly home right now. So then he pays for another hour of friendship with his connection and verbally issues his will. And there's really no way of knowing if that's going to be carried out. So we know that Walter is, suffice it to say, going to take that into his hands. And so then we cut to another scene. Walter's lost enough pounds at this point for his wedding ring to slip off. And, you know, symbolism, here we come. And then he strings it on as a necklace and, you know, something tangible to remind him of purpose in a land where everything is pretty much completely and utterly bereft of it. And that is something that the show has done so freaking flawlessly. I just, hats off. I mean, Heisenberg hats, berets, whatever hats you got to be tipping it for this because that was just so incredibly striking to me. And then we have the scene where, you know, Walter calls, posing as Aunt Marie, to try and get some access to his family. And the way that that scene is played on Flynn's part is just devastating because we see it in his eyes. It's almost like he's believing Walter, who is just in freaking shambles. I mean, never did Santa Claus have so much trouble trying to get a package to the most deserving of children. And he insists, I wanted to give you so much more. And yet, in Flynn's eyes, what Walter is attempting to give him is nothing but garbage and just screaming, you killed Hank and I don't want anything from you. Could not hit harder. God, that was just breath-stealing right there, and it just goes to show that he can't make things end his way, that he can't contain his atrocities and channel them in such a way as to, well, actually do what he's been attempting to do this entire time. And even after this rejection, Walter is still pushing buttons on the payphone like there's no such thing as an afterlife after he pretty much gets this, what is a death sentence from his son. I mean, when you think about it. And then Walter you know, basically signs off on that death sentence, you know, and then orders himself a nice drink. And then he comes across an interview with this old gray matter buddy. And of course, this is just the icing of the cake to get to hear what his former partner says of his involvement in the company and the controversy, etc., etc. And it's easy enough for his old old pal to say that, you know, his contribution was the company name. And we see the anger stirring up in him. And that is the perfect cliffhanger, is the question of WTF is our dear WW going to do? I mean, has the guy not died enough deaths already in like the last 5 minutes? God, that was, I'm ready for whatever is next. And soon enough, the sheriffs show up to the pretty little bar to which Walter White led them. And whatever Walt's gone to do, whatever is going to be his legacy, is about to come to fruition. So, I mean, the question is he about to remake or unmake himself? And does he have anything left with which to busy his hands? And I would argue that there's a good chance that a certain something is going to be unfolding rather soon. So stay tuned, because the end is in sight. And then, of course, they play a little musical tribute at the very end, and I could just feel my heart just welling up within me, you know, the way that they're lacing together all these scenes from all the years, and just the way that everything's transpired. It's, you know, chemistry is the study of change and transformation, and the show makes so overwhelmingly clear how everything has transformed. And I like where things are going in a very bittersweet way. I'm excited for what's next, but as for now, I need to go attend to the Dexter finale and die a little. So thank you so much for tuning into this, and you guys you've been a fun bunch, you know. I look forward to doing more AMC stuff with you come The Walking Dead. So take care, y'all, and I'll be back before you know it, if in fact I am not deceased by the end of tonight. So we'll see what happens there. Take care, you guys.